right, welcome everybody. We'll call to order the Grand Forks City Council meeting for Monday, September 18th, 2023. Roll call, please, Maureen.
Weigel. Here. Wasowski. Here. Weber. Here. Lansky. Here. Kabami.
Here.
Sandy.
Here.
And Dean. And Leah.
Here.
Thank you. Here before.
Thank you. Item 1.2, Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, item 1.3, Mayor's announcements. Obviously, we're in a new space here, so very humbled and honored to welcome everybody and open up the People's House up here in the City Council chambers. Been over 3 decades since the last remodel, and I think bringing some light in here and freshening up has really worked out well, so pretty excited to be up here. Just a couple other announcements. Back, let's see, Thursday, September 7th, was out at the Trek Awards at Rydell Honda for United Way. Unfortunately, Team Grand Forks did not take it home. We took second place, so we got a few from finance that couldn't help us get the win done. But another great event and a pretty good showing. We did beat the firefighters. I think there's a few of them here today, so their team was a little weak as well. We took a tour of the Olive Ad, so that hotel does seem to be progressing quite nicely. It's going to be pretty exciting, slated for December 1st open, just down the street here. So very exciting to see the way Flow Street's been brought to life. Just last week, on Thursday, we had the Back the Badge ride, which was another great opportunity for the community. We got out on that ride and a great chance for the community to show their support, and thanks for our law enforcement, not just the GFPD, but the Sheriff's Department and the Grand Forks Police Department. So I wanted to thank everybody that came off for that event. And then also, many of you here probably were out at the longest table as well, an event hosted by the Community Foundation, which had more than 800 people out there. So another great chance for community members to get together and to sit down at a table and have a good conversation. So that was pretty exciting. But last thing I just wanted to mention is, just wanted to take a moment to recognize the organizations and the tragedy that struck the school bus with Northwood Manhattan. Obviously a pretty horrific incident. We had a volleyball team out driving to a game and ended up in a collision. Obviously one life was lost and several others that are in the care right now. I wanted to thank Ultra for their response. It was pretty impressive to see the way that their staff came together, really in a triage type of situation. And the CEO, Todd Forkel, did want me to pass on to GFPD that they did a great job responding, despite not really even being located in our county, as a matter of fact. But being available at the hospital to help answer questions and just to be available. And I know we had other organizations in the city that were on call too. So just wanted to highlight that. Probably the worst day for a lot of different people. And at least so far, I know a lot of the students have been in the hospital, have been released. So that's been a positive. With that, we're going to move on to awards, presentations, appointments, and proclamations.
2.1 is a Blue Zones update.
All right, I believe we got Ms. Benson, if you want to come forward. I think we're going to have you right over here on this side. Or you go this side? Okay, they got you figured out. All right, please.
Yes. All right. Well, this is a beautiful space, and I have to admit I'm a little nervous when I found out I'm going to be the first person presenting in this new space. So thank you, Mayor Buczynski and council members for having me here. Like I said, my name is Nicole Benson. I'm the Community Project Manager for Blue Zones Project Grand Forks, and I'm going to take the next 10 to 15 minutes to really share with you some of the amazing progress that we've been able to accomplish in just less than a year. We're coming on 1 year here in November. So first, I want to thank Altru and the North Dakota Department of Health and Human Services. It's through their generosity and vision that we were able to bring Blue Zones Project to Grand Forks. Blue Zones Project is a community-led well-being initiative that is working in Grand Forks community to create an even better place to live, learn, work, and play. When our entire community participates, from our work sites and schools to our restaurants and grocery stores, small changes contribute to huge benefits for us all. They include lowered healthcare costs, improved productivity, and ultimately a higher quality of life for all. We are working together to help make healthy choices easier for everyone here in Grand Forks. And this here is a great example of some of the grassroots work that we're doing here in Grand Forks. That photo is, we have what's called walking moais, they're walking groups. Winship Elementary School last year started a walking group in conjunction with St. Anne's, and every Wednesday, students and staff from Winship walk to St. Anne's, and they do a couple laps around their block. We've had students saying that it's their favorite day of the week. In fact, that picture was not during the school year. They had multiple staff, their families, and students that participated over the summer. There's a lady in the center in the green glasses. She's a diabetic, and she said to me, I knew as a diabetic I needed to walk, but I never had the drive to do it, and having these kids come every Wednesday to walk with me has really motivated me to do that. So just a great example of some of the grassroots efforts that we're doing here to not only get people to move naturally, but to build those connections. And then this is just kind of a picture of our scope area. So right now, we are not in all of Grand Forks. We are focusing on the near north neighborhood. So when you think about that, that's Demers to Gateway and the interstate to the river, and then we include the Riverside Park area. In the work that we're doing, we focus on optimizing the environment and more specifically our life radius, and that's the area around our home and work where we spend most of our time, actually up to about 90% of our time. We work to impact communities by focusing on what we refer to as the 3 Ps, people, place, and policy. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've been able to accomplish and share some things we're currently working on. I would like to acknowledge the work I'm about to share is a result of our robust committee members and community partners. So many organizations and people are doing such amazing work here in Grand Forks around wellness. We are blessed to be partnered with these community champions and to help do the work. So Blue Zones Project engages people in activities that change mindsets and habits in lasting ways. First, you'll see some of the Blue Zones Project activities. We do Blue Zones Project story speeches. That's really just laying the foundation of what Blue Zones Project is and what we're planning to do within the community. We have purpose workshops. When community members can identify their passions, talents, and values, they uncover their sense of purpose. Once that happens, we help people find ways to volunteer and put their purpose to work, enriching not only their lives, but the lives of others in the community. And so far, we've conducted 6 purpose workshops within the community, and we have 2 scheduled still this month. Walking groups, like I had shown you in that picture with the Winship and St. Anne's, we have 8 walking groups going on right now. And then we have done 9 cooking demonstrations, and then there's just a list of some of the other engagement activities. We've had 18 media mentions, and again, that's just a result of the amazing partnerships and support we've had from other community organizations. We've been all around the last almost 12 months at over 30 community events, had 2 Adopt a Highway cleanups, and participated in 6 community beautification projects. And this is just a couple pictures of us in the community. And now I'm going to talk about the second P, the places. To improve places you go, we engage a critical mass of organizations to make permanent changes to their environments and adopt policies that will nudge people towards healthier choices. So we work with work sites, schools, restaurants, grocery stores, and civic and faith-based organizations. Ashley Cleveland is our organization lead, and she has been extremely busy in this area. She has been working with the following work sites to achieve Blue Zones Project approval, and that's kind of a 2-pronged approach. So really it's looking at best practices and wellness initiatives that work sites can implement. And then the second prong is getting their staff and faculty engaged in Blue Zones Project activities. The next is the schools. So we engage schools. We're currently working with Wilder and Winship on dual approval. And so what that means is the school is seeking approval, and that really is that child-based or student-based. So what are the best practices and policies to increase well-being in the students? And then work site, that would be the faculty. And then Community High School has recently been engaged, and they are registering also to receive dual approval. The next area is restaurants, the same kind of process. We work on best practices with the restaurants, and so far, those are the list of restaurants that are working towards Blue Zones project approval. And some of the things that might look like is, one of the best practices is not putting salt on the table, or having smaller plates, offering half portions, or Blue Zones meal options on their menus. So really, it's the restaurant, the workshop, the school, they really get to pick the best practices that they want to implement. And the last is the grocery stores. Both North End grocery stores are working towards Blue Zones project approval. And those are just the small changes within the storefront that help make healthy choices easier. An example would be a healthy checkout line. Normally, when you're checking out at a grocery store, you have your energy drinks and your candy bars and your pops. And if you're like me, I have a 9-year-old and she's trying to throw a candy bar into the cart as I'm checking out. The Blue Zones project checkout line is going to have water and healthier options. So when we're going through that checkout line, maybe my daughter is going to grab a banana instead of a candy bar. Maybe. But those are just some of the best practices that can be implemented in grocery stores. And the last P is policy. We work to implement healthy policies. And in policy, the areas that we work on is built environment, food, and tobacco policy. We believe this is one of the most profound ways that we can improve community well-being. City policy impacts everybody, whether they know a Blue Zones project or not. And also, we know that it's long-lasting. Oh, let me go back. So in the built environment area, some of the initiatives that we have supported and worked on is, thank you, council people, for adopting the bike ped plan. So we work with the MPO and really supported them on a lot of more of the community facing, those community information gathering sessions. The DDA and the expansion of the bike share, getting the 2 e-bikes and the 2 electric bikes. And then Grand Forks Public Health has the bike benefit program, which incentivizes people to go to local restaurants and establishments and receive a discount if they're biking to those establishments, and really just encouraging biking as a mode of transportation rather than just recreation. Supported University Park neighborhood and the school district on the mural ordinance change. And then the Pillar of Place conference, we matched the dollars that the DDA put in for the community initiatives for the placemaking concepts. And one of those placemaking concepts that the community members worked on was Skidmore Park. That's the park that's right across from the North End Dairy Queen. That was kind of identified in our discovery process as a special location. So we are working with a group of community members to find ways to have, make that park more accessible and safer, and then doing some revitalization projects in that park. So we actually are going to be working on it with community members on Sunday. And then pickleball. The Pickleball Association got a hold of me and are wanting to potentially do some temporary pickleball courts on the north end. So I just had a meeting with them today at University Park, and so hoping to spread that pickleball court love and excitement over to the north end. And then again, the longest table, we participated and supported that event. Under food policy, we're working to create a food policy council. We've held healthy cooking demos at the farmers markets, and we're working on food policy skills and education, so some community-facing and professional-facing surveys so we can identify what are some of the food skills that our community is lacking, what do we currently offer, and where are our gaps. We're also working to increase SNAP usage, and our amazing Town Square Farmers Market does accept SNAP. They also do double up food bucks. So really this year, working on collecting data for that usage so we can really track and measure if we are seeing an increase in SNAP usage throughout our community, but also at our farmers market. If you were at the Potato Bowl, our food trolley is back up and running, so we work to get that out of storage and functioning, and this winter we'll be working on some programming to go along with that food trolley, so food procurement, getting some of those healthy food options to some of our food deserts, and then also some education that we can do with that food trolley. I'm working with the city to get a healthy vending machine here in City Hall. The Well Fed program was a program that we had here. It sunsetted just before COVID, so a lot of great efforts are going in now to get that up and running again, and then updating our school wellness policies. And last is the tobacco. So we partnered with Grand Forks Public Health and the school to get out a parent vaping education letter to all parents and guardians of students in the school district right as the school year was ending. We participated in the ND Quits campaign. We also partnered with Public Health to increase some of the indoor and outdoor ads and geofencing for cessation and around the Quits campaign. We participated in drug-free communities, and we had some additional dollars, so we were able to get some scholarships to the YMCA for students within the Grand Forks School District, really looking at protective factors and how can we prevent and give students some healthy outlets. And we are also working on scholarships for students who participate in the Grand Forks Public Schools sales program to get them some scholarships to be able to use the YMCA. So, that was a lot. As you can see, we've done a lot of great work in just a short amount of time. I truly believe the partnerships and relationships that we have built have allowed us to increase the momentum, and that it's going to really have a substantial impact in year 2. We have seen the community's interest in Blue Zones projects skyrocket in the last couple of months, and we couldn't be more excited about the future. We are currently looking at our blueprint or strategic plan to see if there are any adjustments that need to be made, and we'll be looking at our community metrics that were identified by our committee members to see if we've made any improvement within this year. And I want to note the importance of that. Everything that we do is evidence-based. We continue to measure and track our progress. We believe that we have the best practices, resource, people, and partnerships in place to truly make a measurable impact here in Grand Forks. So thank you for your time, and thank you community members and council and mayor for your support in Blue Zones project. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Benson. I'll open up if any council members have any questions for you this evening. Mr. Weber, I see you slowly raise your hand, please.
Mr. Mayor, I have a comment.
Yes.
And this makes me the first person, other than the mayor, to get to use one of these microphones. So I'm pretty excited. I'm a little nervous, too. Yeah, so I'm third now, aren't I?
Yeah.
The Wilder and Winship involvement is a nice reminder that Blue Zones is not just for the elderly, it's for the entire community. 8 to 80 is one of the mottos of efforts like this. And the Skidmore Park and Dairy Queen, the collaboration there, it's great. I went to DQ a few times myself late in the evening, and there were lots of kids around, and they were kind of stuck in the parking lot or at a single park bench there. And how wonderful to combine that family outing with some recreational opportunities right at that lovely little park there. It's difficult to calculate both the savings and the benefits of all of the work that you've been doing. So thanks for all you've already done in just a year. I know that projects like this, we often grow impatient and say, well, you've had a year. Why isn't this all done? But if we think of major road projects or things of that sort, the planning, the implementation, the execution takes a long, long time. And this is broader and more comprehensive in some ways. So thanks again for your impressive work.
Mayor, Ms. Osowski. We'll go to you second, Mr. V. Ms. Osowski, please.
Okay, so you focus on the north end, correct? But then these other things that you collaborate with other, I don't know what they are, they're all over the community, right? So what's different within the north end that isn't spread to the rest of the community?
So our focus on the north end really was a result of resources. So right now, we're a 3-year plan, and we're currently funded by ALTRA and the North Dakota Department of Health and Human Services. And we worked with Grand Forks Public Health to identify where is the area maybe of the most need and where we can truly make an impact. And when we say we're focused on that area, when we're working with schools on approval, those schools are in the north. The restaurants, the work sites, we understand that, people may work at Winship and live in East Grand Forks, or work at Altru and live, on the south end. But really, when we're focusing on a lot of our initiatives, and especially those approval pieces, it really is in that scope area. It gets a little bit tricky. It has been, kind of tricky where a lot of times Blue Zones project communities, it's an entire community. So we're kind of paving the way and making adjustments as we go. But when we say that we're focused on that area, and then it's truly, we have performance guarantees that we need to meet. So when we look at engagement, specific to like individual engagement, we have to engage X amount of people that are living in our scope area as well.
What's your budget?
What is our budget? So we're funded through Altru Health System and the North Dakota Department of Health and Human Services.
Yeah, do you have a budget?
Do we have a budget?
How much money did these people give to the Blue Zones last year?
So I believe for the 3-year plan, Altru will be giving about $500,000, I believe. And then, I can get back to you on the exact figures that were received for that sponsorship.
How many community members actually participate in these?
So right now, when we're looking at specific to our area that are participating in the exact engagement activities. So our goal for year one was just under 1,000 people in that specific zip code that are doing and when I say Blue Zones project activities, that's participating and listening to the story speech, participating in our walking moais, and it's not only participating, they have to, it's a series of 10, and they have to participate in 6 in order for us to count that engagement. Same with those purpose workshops. So it's those specific activities that we're counting, and right now we have I think it's about 500 people in that 58202, 58203 zip code that have engaged in those specific activities.
When do you think you'll have measurable data that can show if this is actually working within our community?
So our year one is over on November 15th, so we'll look at data from, the start to year one, and we have our steering and leadership committee have looked at all sorts of community-wide metrics and have chosen metrics that we will be tracking throughout the program,
And that'll just be tracked in that specific north end, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bean, please.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Nicole, for the presentation. I appreciate the great information, and you've answered a number of the questions, especially when there was discussion about the metrics and what's measurable. Unfortunately, I wish this was for the entire city, but I'm thankful for the work that you're doing, and just I've heard lots of good things, and thanks for the work you do.
Thank you, Ken.
Any other questions or comments from Ms. Benson? All right, seeing none, thank you.
All right, thank you.
for presenting. Okay, that's it for item 2, and we're on to item 3, public hearings and second readings of ordinances.
3.1 is the public hearing and second reading of ordinance for the final approval of the 2024 budget. Attached is your ordinance and fee list that's been adjusted for actions on August 7th, as well as previous attachments from previous meetings.
Thank you, Ms. Storstad. So I'm going to have a few comments to begin, and I know Ms. Storstad had some early comments as well, and then we'll go into the public hearing portion of this, and then we'll open up to council for comments after that. So I just want to highlight, similar to past budgets, there's really 3 pillars that we're highlighting. Public safety, that's filling the capital needs of police and fire. That's continue to support 6 additional officers that we added this year through the community-oriented policing grant, which is starting to wind down. Infrastructure is the second main pillar. We're putting a record amount of dollars towards roads and upgrading our wastewater treatment plant. And the third piece is really people, supporting our effective and efficient workforce through competitive wages and benefits. And I think you're really seeing that pay off. If you look at the police department, for example, we're only 1 officer away from being fully staffed, which hasn't happened in a number of years. And we've been far more successful recently at staffing up to high levels within the city. All that said, with the budget that we are maintaining another mill decrease for the 4th straight year, and really, I believe, setting up the city for steady growth into the future. So I think it's exactly what you want to see out of a budget, and I'm pretty excited to bring it forth for final approval tonight. With that, Ms. Storstad, please.
All right, thank you, Mayor, President Sandy, members of the City Council. You hit the highlights really well, took much of what I was going to review with you. It's been a little while since we've talked budget. There's quite a time period between preliminary approval and this public hearing of the budget. So before we open it up to public hearing, I just wanted to maybe review a little bit about how we got here. Mayor, you worked with staff on putting your budget together based on those priorities that you've already gone through in investments of people, infrastructure, public safety, and quality of life. So that was really the basis of putting the budget together. We did bring forward a salary plan that Ms. Bouvette presented on July 10th, as well as we presented on that date just an overview, just a preview of the budget at that time. Ultimately, we presented the budget in total on July 24th and brought it forward for preliminary approval then on August 7th, which brings us to estimated tax statements were sent out to all households leading up to the public hearing of the budget today. But in total, the budget is $296 million. This is going to have swings year to year just due to timing of capital projects. Of that, the general fund portion is $49.9 million. The largest component of your general fund operations is public safety. When you take public safety, public health, streets, engineering all combined, that's 76% of your general fund. As you stated, we focused a lot on salaries and making sure we're competitive and looking at that salary plan A that was recommended as part of the budget. We also looked at capital, making sure we're funding that appropriately. We do have some use of general fund cash to take care of some more immediate street equipment capital needs, and then get them started in this 2024 budget on a plan of capital replacement reserve, similar to how we do with fire and police, engineering, and inspections, take those fluctuations out of the budget year to year. Also, with the general fund, we do have some use of the fire cash reserve and loan and stabilization funds over the projected time period. But in the end, all that is said and done with things, our umbrella over property tax, we are looking at that $500,000 decrease. When you do look at increases in valuation, what that comes to in the end, on average, then is just over $2 a month increase per $100,000 of residential value. So that's how that comes in terms of dollars. Other than that, a big part of the conversation has been economic development, how to use those dollars, quality of life. The mayor had brought forward for consideration a use for one large quality of life project being the Children's Museum, looking at a 10-year plan, and that's spurred good discussion there. Finally, as a reminder on the utility rates, that estimates, based on a family using 6,000 gallons of water, basically a $4.58 a month increase there, which comes to 4.57%. We did include some updated information for you, just those slight revisions made at preliminary approval. Those are those revised inserts for you. And before I turn it over to the public hearing, once we do finish up with discussion there, we would just ultimately look forward to a final approval of a 2024 budget. And that would be to also include the salary plan and fees. But for now, I'm going to turn over the public hearing.
All right, thank you. At this time, we'll open up the public hearing for item 3.1. So as you come forward, you're going to go to my right, to your left, to the podium there. So anybody here wishing to speak on item 3.1, please come forward. All right, seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing portion, and I'll open up to City Council for further comments and ultimately to make a motion. Ms. Osowski, please.
I guess I just have a comment about the museum. I'd like to see an agreement with some stipulations on how and when funds will be distributed.
Yeah, and this is just the first step in that, so we're just essentially setting the budget for it. We're going to have to come back to set all those terms. That'll come before you, and you'll have final approval of any of those.
I motion approval.
Got a motion approved from Ms. Osowski. Do we have a second? Got a second from President Sandy. He beat you to it, Mr. Weigel. All right, any further comments on item 3.1? President Sandy, please.
I think we should always take a moment and recognize the really good employees we have working for the city of Grand Forks. The budget and budget time is always difficult for a lot of people, the people that are working on it and the people that are stressed about their futures and their employment with the city. I think our finance folks, our assessing department, and certainly all the employee groups that took the time to come together to talk about the new salary plan concept. I think they all deserve a word of thanks for being that invested in our community, to taking that much time and trying to make the work environment a good place for us to call home. So really appreciate it, Mr. Mayor, and thank you as well. Good job.
Well said, President Sandy. Any other further comments before we vote? Mr. Weigel, please.
Just real quick, Mayor, I appreciate city staff's, all their work on the budget, your work on the budget, Mr. Mayor, but I do hope that as we continue to look at the salary plan, I've said it from the very beginning that I do believe that there has to be a component of performance tied into that, not just a simple ECI that everybody gets. So I hope when that time comes, HR will have a plan to implement how that performance will be implemented.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Weigel. Any further comments?
Mayor, one quick question here. Okay, I'd like to reiterate much of what's already been stated too. I think I'm fully supportive of the 2024 budget and all the work that went into it. This is a major effort on behalf of the city staff and yourself and all others that put this forward. It's kind of evident in just the comments we are getting, or maybe not getting, about the completeness of the budget. So I think it should be identified, the support for that. I do agree with and fully supportive of the Children's Museum, and look forward to what that detailed agreement would be. And one other area I probably wish we would have done a little bit more in the event funding and arts grant program, but understand that what we have is going to be, I think, utilized very well, and also understand if there were ever need to come back for more, that could happen. But for now, I think we have the inclusive budget that we're all looking for. I just want to recognize that.
Thank you, Mr. Veen. Any further comments from council? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. All right, that's it for item 3. Move on to 4, citizen comments related to action items. Ms. Lundmark, any comments this evening? All right, we'll move on to 5 action items. We've got 3 that either have been mentioned to be polled, or we're going to have poll item 5.1, 5.5, and 5.12. Is there any other items that council, I'll give you a minute to review, that wanted to be polled other than those 3 items? All right, so we're looking for a motion then to approve items 5.1, 5.3, 5.4, 5.6, 5.7, 5.8, 5.9, 5.10, and 5.11.
I move approval.
Got a motion to approve from Ms. Osowski and a second from Mr. Weigel.
Sorry, did you read those correctly? I thought we were pulling 5.1.
Let me reread that. 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, 5.6, 5.7, 5.8, 5.9, 5.10, and 5.11. Did I get it right that
Move
time?
approval.
Okay, we got a motion from Ms. Osowski on that updated motion and a second from Mr. Weigel. Thank you, President Sandy. All those in favor, seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. I think I'm just too used to starting from the top and getting to the bottom. So, Ms. Storside, we start with item 5.1, then 5.5, and 5.12, please.
5.1, resolution authorizing the issuance, call for bids and set sale date for the $21,090,000 refunding improvement bonds, Series 2023F, and call for a special city council meeting on October 23rd, 2023.
All right, we're looking for to set that special city council meeting at this time.
I can speak a bit to this item. So yes, you'll see me come here each year, this time of year, for this bond, which finances the year's special assessment projects. This year, with this bond, those projects vary all the way from paving to water main to sanitary sewer to sidewalks. A large portion of this is the Grand Valley area. These are to be paid back through the term through special assessments. With this, also, the resolution authorizes the issuance, calls for the bid to set the sale date for October 23rd. Municipal advisors recommended October 23rd timing of the market with that bond sale. So what we are asking as part of this is to call for a special city council meeting, as that is normally a committee of the whole night. But we want to move this forward, so if we could also just take care of that business on October 23rd, and we can move this forward. Those bids then will be accepted by our municipal advisor, Baker Tilly, and they will present the results of those bond sales, or of those bids and award of sale that night on October 23rd. With that, just maybe as a context, the pre-sale summary is attached and resolution is attached to the staff report that will just give you a synopsis of what's involved in there. Looking at, looking compared to a year ago, rates were about 4.3%. We're estimating somewhere between 4.5–5% this year. So a little bit up, but not too bad. We'll get more information. We'll go through the process of the Moody's rating call, gather all the information, go through that process, bring this back to you with bid results on the 23rd.
All right, thank you, Mr. Orsad. Have any questions, comments, open up to council? Mr.
Move
Weber,
approval of staff recommendation.
got a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Got a second from, I'll give it to Ms. Lunsky. Any further comments by council? We're getting her in the game, President Sandy. All right. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
Then 5.5, introduction and preliminary approval of Pedal Pub ordinance.
All right, I think, Ms. Osowski, do you have a question related to that to begin with, and then we'll get to you, Mr. Gosted.
So, Mr. Gosted, if we approve this ordinance and things don't seem to work out, are we allowed to go back, take them away, get rid of them?
Get rid of
The pedal pub?
yeah, you could revoke the ordinance.
Okay.
And if it's, if they violate the terms of the ordinance, I think we talked about that too. There are provisions in there that the permit itself, you keep the ordinance in place, but the permit that's issued to the driver, to the business could be revoked. There'd be a process, but there's a process for that as well under the ordinance.
All right. Thank you. That's the only question I had.
Move approval.
All right, we got a motion to approve from Mr. Weigel. Do we have a second? Second from President Sandy. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
5.12, introduce ordinance and preliminary approval to amend Chapter 18 Land Development Code sections as it relates to landscaping and buffer yard requirements, and the related Section 18 as listed.
All right, Mr. Brooks, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to try to open up having a little bit of problem here, but provide you with updates to the Land Development Code. The staff has been working on this for roughly over a year now. We've got some new staff. We decided to try to do this internally. So we've been working on this, and I'll provide you a short presentation. There's a lot of words on this, but for now I just want to kind of provide you with about a 5-minute update, and if this stops asking me questions. Okay. So the purpose of the landscaping code is to give separation in between uses in areas that we have new construction going on, those types of things. When a new property comes in, we look for that separation along the street, along neighboring uses, those types of things to buffer and add attractiveness. So that's kind of our purpose. Some of the things that we wanted to look at and some of the things that we've experienced over the years is that we were very intense in some uses. One of the things that we heard when I had somebody with a landscaping business talk to me and say, look, I can sell these trees to this person, but they aren't going to survive. It's just too intense in this area. We knew we had a problem and we needed to come in and take a look. That wasn't the standard. It was on a particular area where we had a very intense use, but when we heard that, when we had a company kind of coming to us and saying, it's just too intense, there's too much, and that would have been a business that obviously would have benefited by selling more trees. So that's really where we've kind of took a step back. We've worked through our land use plan updates through the years. We've updated our buffer landscapes, so each use, every zoning district in between another zoning district has a different requirement. And so we've updated those. And here's the update process that we've had. We've started, as I said, back in our 2045 land use plan, but we really really started in earnest in the winter of 2022. That's when we had two new planners that started in our office, and they got to work with it and working with local nurseries, contractors, developers, and really getting in their inputs. And so as we work through the summer, working through other departments as well, and trying to get all the comments. We went to planning and zoning earlier this month, provided them some comment. It was really the first time they had really gotten to look at it. And so we've kind of taken a step back, and we're going to be doing an open house on October 11th. Try to make sure that we have all comments. Our big time frame is to get this done over the winter so that we're ready in the spring. So that's really what our next step is with that. So what are some of the issues? As I said, there was some confusing and restrictive pieces in our code, and so we kind of took a step back. We simplified our buffer yards, moved them from 8 different ones down to 4. So we simplified that a little bit, got rid of some outdated language, got rid of some other pieces that just made sense in terms of taking a look at each site as we went through. Here's a look at our old, on the left is our old buffer yards. Those are just the 5. We went all the way down to buffer yard H, which was 50 feet wide. And so that was an industrial next to single family. Don't end up with a lot of those, but that's certainly very intense in terms of spacing and requirements and amount of trees within that area. We've simplified it a little bit and got, as I said, got rid of that outdated language. And then the last piece, I think just at our last meeting, one of the pieces that we had was a question about bond escrow. So at the end of this year, this time of year, as people start to get ready, they're trying to get, during freeze up, try to finish up their site. And the last thing to go in on every site is the landscaping. It just, otherwise your yard's getting ripped up and those types of things, can't put that in ahead of time. So one of the things that we do allow is them to provide us a bond escrow. And so they can submit payment to us. One of the things that we looked at is submitting that, but one of the comments we received was, why don't we do that on if somebody's proposing to put in more than amount of landscaping, let's just ask for them to provide that bond on the minimum requirement, even though they're still going to do a maximum. So I just think that made sense. And so we've updated that language and just looked at flexibility. We'll have our old code allowed us to drop down a letter grade. So if a requirement was at a letter B, which is a little bit more intense than A, on occasion we would be able to take a look at that if there was some difference on a site, some reason that couldn't be performed, we could work with them. And so we still have some of those flexibilities in place, but not necessarily just on a letter grade. We can look at other flexibilities to continue to work with developers. Next steps, as we said, open house in October, and then final approvals in November. That's a quick synopsis, Mayor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brooks. Any comments from council? President Sandy, please.
Mr. Brooks, rather than having director have the ability to make those judgment calls, would it at least be reasonable to brief the Planning and Zoning Commission when you're making those calls in case, as a group, they disagree with it? Even if, I don't have a problem if you're making the call. I think letting other people know what you're doing, and I think that shows good accountability. So just to, I don't know, I'm not saying we should change what we're going forward with. I just think you should brief the Planning and Zoning Commission when these judgment calls are being made.
No, that's a good idea. It's that way we're getting feedback too as staff, just to make sure if somebody says, wait a minute, that was too much, maybe you should have done this. It provides us the ability to still be reactive to that. So thank you. Yes, we can share that on a monthly basis with the Planning Commission.
Vice President Weber.
Yeah, and so that would also come to council after going to P&Z, or are you just seeing a single stop?
I mean, the Planning and Zoning Commission, in my opinion, they're there as a group that study and think and learn and provide feedback on these sorts of issues. We could have it come to City Council as well for a briefing, but I at least think it should, those judgment calls should be brought to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
And we're making final approvals in November, and this still needs Mr. Gaustad's review. So we've got time for those kinds of changes as we get into it.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, at least at the Planning and Zoning, it's in a public meeting, so it's out there, it's available for anyone to go back and review. We can watch it ourselves there, and if we have issues, we can certainly bring them up, so.
And was that a motion then, President Sandy?
Do we need to codify that as part of this ordinance change? Probably not. I'm making the friendly recommendation, and I think as policy staff would just do it.
Right, I was mainly,
I'll move approval on.
Good, I'll second it.
Yeah, thank you.
thanks.
All right, we've got a motion to approve and a second, President Sandy, and a second from Vice President Weber, as is. Any further comment from council? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. All right, we'll move on to item 6, information items.
6.1, investment portfolio summary as of August 31st.
Thank you. Received and filed. Item 7, approval of minutes and bills.
7.1, vendor list as is attached to your agenda.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the vendor list? Got a motion from Mr. Weigel, second from President Sandy. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to 8, citizen comments, general comments. Any comments this evening, Ms. Lundmark?
Yep, I have one this evening. Ronald Barta.
All right, Mr. Barta, you got the honor of being the first citizen to comment.
Thank you, sir.
Please take
Appreciate
it
that.
away.
So, bottom line up front, I'm going to show leadership failures, dereliction of duty, and violation of North Dakota Century Code. The informal process is more dangerous than the formal process. As I've led organizations and thousands of people, I've always come up with those that say this is the way I was always taught or this is the way we've always done it. And that's what we've got to get a hold of. We've got a situation or process, an informal process right now, where our police department is informally communicating with the state's attorney. The state's attorney is giving their advice, and because of it, our police department is not sending the affidavits up to the state's attorney for prosecution, which in turn makes our police department look like they're the bad guys in this situation. The situation I'm specifically talking about is violation of North Dakota Century Code 12.1-27.1-01, obscenity, and also 14-10-06, unlawful encouragement or contributing to the deprivation or delinquency of a minor. Specifically, the first one, obscenity, states a person is guilty of a Class C felony if, knowing of its character, the person disseminates obscene material. That's what it says. That was done. That was done by both the school board and by the library. it was referred, or a complaint was filed with the police department. That complaint, I was led to believe, went to the state's attorney. I've got documentation from the state's attorney that says they saw it and they made it a decision on it. When I approached the state's attorney through the county commission, because they hold the purse, the state's attorney was very clear. Those charges were never referred, and as I'm sure you know, Mr. Barta, if a charge is not referred, we can't act upon it. So who's the bad guy? Our police department is. Having communicated effectively, I so thought, with the police department, the first thing I did is I contacted my point of contact for these charges. And that individual explained to me that they didn't send up the affidavits, that they communicated, and the state's attorney identified they wouldn't prosecute. So because of that, they didn't send them up. Plus, in addition to this, that individual told me, nor, Mr. Barta, will I. So now I've got a law enforcement officer who knows that laws are being broken. The North Dakota Century Code is being broken. But he's choosing not to send up the affidavit to prosecute. See, this would be so much clearer. The battle I'm fighting is ambiguous, and the fog of war is there. Because what I'm finding out is there is no official process. The informal process that's taking place makes our officers look bad. And whether we like it or not, and I'm sure we are aware, that when our officers are out there shooting, moving, and communicating, doing the right thing, rolling up the bad guys, and developing the case to provide the state's attorney, when no prosecution is done, all Leos ask the same question. What the heck am I doing this for? I'm not allowed to make an impact. So I'm here today speaking with you, and this is 11 minutes and 37 seconds. I ain't got time for that because I got stuff to do, right? But what I need you to do is I need you to go back to the police department, dispose of or divest of this informal process where we go to the state's attorney and ask them if they prosecute. We need to identify in our investigation, what does the law say? Was the law broken? And if it was broken, send up the affidavit and let the state's attorney be held accountable for what she's choosing not to do. Our crime in this city has gone up 50% in some areas, 30% in most areas. I've seen these officers at work. I've communicated with them on a daily basis. I can tell you, they're not our problem right now. But we've got a problem. We've got to get it fixed, and fixing this process will be the first step. Pending your questions.
Thank you. Mr. Barta, any questions for Mr. Barta?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, we'll move on to item 9, City Administrator comments. Mr. Phelan?
2 updates for you, Mayor, and members of City Council. We are planning to we have been working as staff and City Attorney on the Epitome Energy project, so we anticipate having a brief, Council President Sandy, to either the Committee of the Whole on October 9th or on October 23rd. And before we get back to City Council and to you as the Committee of the Whole, we are planning a state meeting, and so we'll have some further information on various permitting and cost shares and that sort of thing. So the project continues to proceed. We are in contact with Mr. Egan of Epitome Energy, and we will also have, as part of that briefing, we'll have Mr. Egan here to provide an update on where he's at with funding of that particular project also. Also want to highlight that the North Dakota State Water Commission has chosen Grand Forks to host their next meeting, which would be on Thursday, October 12th at 1 p.m., and they'll be in our council chambers. But prior to that, they are going to be here to cut the ribbon on the Grand Forks Regional Water Treatment Plant and do tours. And as you recall, back in 2020, there was the pandemic came, and that we were not able to celebrate the opening in June of 2020 of that facility. And so they will be here to recognize that and to celebrate that opening. And as you recall, that was about a $150 million facility. of which we received 50% cost share, so we received about a $75 million grant for that. So probably the largest grant that we've ever received from the state of North Dakota. So that's a big deal, and I think it also goes to the fact of how well we've worked with the state of North Dakota on the various projects that they want to celebrate with us, and also host their meeting here in Grand Forks and in getting out of Bismarck. So with that, thanks for all you guys do.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Item 10, Mayor and Council member comments. Mr. Weigel, any comments this evening?
Just briefly, Mayor, just thank you for hosting the Back the Badge event. I thought it was really well attended. Great to see so many people out there, and just overall, thank you for having that event yearly.
Thank you, Mr. Weigel. Ms. Osowski, any comments this evening? All right, Ms. Lunsky, any comments this evening? Is Mr. Kavami still online? Mr. Kavami, any comments? Looks like he's gone. Mr. Veen, any comments
No
this evening?
comment.
All right, Vice President Weber.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to thank Ms. Benson for the Blue Zones update and to recognize that your facilities and quality of life initiatives are certainly in lockstep with that, and actually will make even a greater contribution to the community. Additionally, the Community Foundation Longest Table event, it's my understanding that, and I think this is a fantastic illustration of our community coming together. So the Longest Table event is meant as a community building exercise. At a certain point in the evening, the call came in about the tragic bus accident. And my understanding is that there were over 40 all-true employees and first responders who stepped up and had to leave the longest event to go respond to that. And it was just a clear indication of how tight-knit we really are as a community, just 1 or 2 degrees of separation from the folks that might be coming out to help you or a family member in that kind of situation. And beyond that, I also wanted to take a moment. These chambers and the technology are fantastic. So thanks and congratulations to all who were involved in that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Vice President Weber. President Sandy, please.
The technology is great here. I'm hearing from people that the audio isn't very good out on Facebook. So I think step one, great here. We'll have to work on the audio out elsewhere. I think, Mayor, based upon what Mr. Barta said, I think a question for RPD would be, is the special process that we're using going to the state's attorney specifically related to other taxing entities, or is that the normal process we do for any sort of case? I don't know. Perhaps that's a rhetorical question from me, but and I'm sure the chief would be happy to. I'm sorry, Chief, I wasn't looking to get into a discussion, but sure, if you want to fill in on it, it's great.
No, it'd be just short. I just wanted to give you a level of comfort. There's times that we have called over there seeking their advice, saying, hey, we're entertaining sending an affidavit over. Would this be something you would support? If they say no, there's times in the past we haven't. But keeping what's going on in mind, that's obviously, especially when stuff dealing with this nature, it's something we can re-examine. It's a super easy fix. We'll make it happen.
Thank you, Chief. I think the way Ms. Wamstead made it sound like RPD was the problem and not her office, I think it warrants that perhaps we should be sending those through. But that's your decision, not mine, certainly. I appreciate Mr. Brooks' presentation tonight. That's the second time I saw the exact same presentation because I, of course, watched the Planning and Zoning meeting. I wasn't able to watch it live, but you know, on Facebook, it's really easy. You can go back and you can find it and you can watch it at your leisure. I think I watched it about 2 o'clock in the morning one night because that's when I had free time. I would make the suggestion that we all have busy schedules, so I would try to find time to watch those meetings. Last thing, Mr. Hansen's here. One of the most important things we did tonight was the lead service line replacement, providing up to 90% of funds to help folks in our community that have lead service lines, drinking water service lines to their community or to their homes. The city and the feds are picking up, and the state are picking up 90% of the cost for replacement on those, which is great. So if you have lead service line to your home, reach out to the city. I don't know if we can get you done this year, but we certainly are interested in helping get that done. Thank you, Mayor. Great meeting.
Yep, thank you, President Say. That's a great point. That cost share was intended to go down because of the states and the federal's cooperation. Was intended to go down to 50%, but the city's stepping up and continuing that at 90%. So definitely check that out if you're in that area that has that. Final comments from me. I think so much work goes into the budget. This is really a process that starts the end of March through April, and we get here today. And the way you can tell if it's a good budget is you don't have fireworks at the end and the work's already been done. So very happy to see that passed, and very excited to see the support of our staff, which has been mentioned many times tonight. Also wanted to just make a comment. Was everybody able to hear okay tonight in the audio in the House at least? We got several thumbs up, so we'll work on that. I know we could probably, our members that were on Zoom, I think that volume could have been turned up as well a little bit, but pretty exciting and happy that we had a pretty concise, now we're just over an hour, but basically an hour meeting that was both a successful meeting and a respectful one. So just want to thank everyone for being here today. And with that, I'd look for a motion to adjourn. Got a motion to adjourn from Ms. Osowski and a second from Ms. Lunsky. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.